Okay, in this video we're going to answer how to check whether a file exists without an exception. Now, I think this is the wrong question, but I'm going to answer that first, and then I'm going to show you the Pythonic way of doing it, that magical word I keep throwing out in these videos. So, first of all, let's go old school. In the beginning, there was the OS library. So let's import it, and we're going to use os path exist, and I put in the data directory a file that exists, and then a file that's not there. Now I just made that name up, but let's check our code here. Okay, so yes, we got a true and a false. So we found out if the file is there. But the problem with exist is that it will also work on a directory. So if we just look at the data directory that file was in, it exists too. So that may not be what you want. So a more subtle way of doing this is to use isFile and isDir for directory to see if it's a real file in there or if it's a directory. So let's run that. So we get a true for file that exists, we get a false for the directory data, and we get a true on isDir for the data directory. Now, could you still get an error? Yes, you could, because maybe that file you don't have read permissions on or write permissions on. So we're going to test this can't touch this text, which I took off the read permissions from it. So yeah, it's there, but then when I go to open it, oh my gosh, I get this permission denied error. So now we can use os.access to find out if we have os.R_OK. They've got other constants for like write OK or read write. But let's check out. We're gonna run this, and we can get access to file that exists, and we cannot get access to can't touch this.txt. Now, all right, that means you've got to do 2 checks, and maybe even that won't be enough. Now let's look at, there's a newer library, and this is one that I wasn't familiar with. So one of the reasons I like doing these videos is I get to learn too while I'm doing it. But there's a pathlib that was introduced in Python 3.4, and it allows you to create a path object. So we're going to, from pathlib, we're going to import path, and we're going to create 3 paths here. Good file path, bad file path that's not there, and the can't read, can't touch this.txt. And then we're going to test is_file, so it's pretty similar to OS, is_file for all 3 of those. And yes, true and not true for the file that isn't there. But now, what else, why introduce this new library? Well, it turns out when you're doing a lot of file work, which I've been doing on projects here even the last couple of weeks, you're going to want to know things like the directory, the parent directory, or the file extension. And without this, you have to do a lot of, splitting it on the slashes. But what if you're in another operating system and the slash is this way? File path takes all of that out of there. So here with these file paths, we can get the parent, which is data. Nice. We can get the name of the file that exists.txt. You can also get the suffix. And so what I realized when I learned this is, there goes 3-4 lines of code down to something that's a lot more readable, a lot more intuitive as to what it's doing. I'm going to be using this going forward. Now, let's talk Pythonic, the moment you've been waiting for. And this sets you apart. If someone that's looking to hire you or looking to get you involved in a project is an experienced Python coder, they're going to notice if you do things the Python way or you're hacking at it like you just came over from another, JavaScript or some other language. So, the thing is don't be afraid of errors. Python does not penalize you for throwing an error. Be afraid of unhandled errors. And so in my code, you'll see a lot of these try except blocks. And until you start handling your errors, you really haven't bulletproofed your code. So let's look at this. We're going to do with open. Now this is the Pythonic way. Now the reason you would do this with open is that when you leave that block, it automatically closes the file no matter what happens. Even if you get an error somewhere further in your processing, the file gets closed. It's not left open. And so that's why people prefer that. So there's a try. We're going to do a with open as F for the file. I'm just going to print it out. I'm going to read it. And then I've got an exception handler below. So let's run that. Puts the text out. I exist, therefore I am. Now, let's try the same thing with that file that we can't read and see what happens. Now here, in the exception, I did unable to read because of whatever the error was. So let's run it. And here we go. I was unable to read the can't touch this because permission denied. Now there might be further things you'd want to do with that error handling to bulletproof your code, but this is the basic building blocks. Hope that was helpful. I answered the question and then I answered a better question. See you in the next video. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't, and please hit like. Really helps with me getting traction with this channel. Thank you.